Good morning, good morning, good morning. Here we are again. It's Thursday morning. Yes, what is it? The spirit world sees all. That's what I'm doing here this morning. I had to wonder for a second what I was up to. Anyway, good morning, everybody. Before we begin the show, of course, I would first like to say good morning to, excuse me, my spirit guide, Gradle, who is standing next to me. And no way. And I would like to say good morning to Chris.
Good morning.
And good morning to all of you out there who are listening. As you know, we had an experience last week. To me, it was an amazing experience because I did not expect it. We're also having a little bit of an amazing experience this morning because I certainly have not expected it, although I should not be surprised. I'm just wondering if this is going to be a regular occurrence. Chris, is there anybody there?
We want to know who's there with you, Rosemary.
Yeah, well,
yes, we have lots of people logging on.
I'll tell you in a minute. All right, so we've got lots of people logging on, and do we have any comments or questions before I really begin?
Let's see. Judith is saying hello from Georgia. Himalaji is from Colombo, Sri Lanka. Gary's on. Annika. Jenny's saying hello to Gray Eagle and yourself.
I love all these comments that we get. I really do, and I so appreciate everybody joining in here. Fabulous, fabulous, fabulous.
Rhonda's saying last week's show was amazing. I still can't believe Jesus showed up for us all.
Well, get ready. Get ready, Rhonda. Anyway, go ahead, yes.
Dee's here saying good morning. Melissa, Mary, Sandra, Gabriella.
My goodness, we do have a lot of people on. All right.
Right.
So let me begin then this little story. What triggered my mind to thinking about what we might want to talk about this morning is I had an email from a lovely friend of mine. She's lovely. I really like her. I like her husband. She sent me this really nice email. She told me about her daughter who's getting, hopefully, if you're listening, I'm not going to mention who this is, but if you're listening, I hope she's doing really, really well. But in the letter, she said, in the email, she said, I'm terrified that Trump will become president. And it made me start to think. Now, I have to be perfectly honest with everybody here. First of all, let me tell you, I'm not a political person. I try not to involve myself too much in the politics of whatever's going on in any country, particularly because I found over the many, many years that I've lived, we all know I've lived a lot of years, that I find that politicians are, let's say, a breed unto themselves. It's hard to know whether what they're saying or what they do or what they promote or what they're supportive of. It's hard to say whether that is for their own selves and their own views, or whether it is for the nation, whichever nation. And I'm not just talking about America, I'm talking about every country in the world, and we know because we've seen it. There are crooked politicians everywhere. There are dishonest surgeons everywhere. We know there are dishonest people claiming to be mediums and so on. We know that human beings are flawed, but for my money, I like to listen sometimes to what politicians have to say, but I also am, I think, sensible enough to take it with a pinch of salt. Now, let's move on from the politicians. These are my thoughts over the last few days or so, and particularly since I got this lovely email. Now, years ago, when I was a young thing, you could really rely on the newspapers, news reporters. You could rely on them being impartial, because after all, that's what a reporter should be, and that's what we expect a reporter to be. When I was young, it seemed to me, and my father and I would have discussions about this from time to time, it seemed that journalists were sort of pretty honest in their agenda, in their reporting, and reporting from both sides, both viewpoints of a particular situation. Of course, we know, because we see how the media hound the Hollywood stars, we see how they hound different people, we see how reporters and news shows and news reporting can actually, in fact, destroy or try to destroy, and do a very good job of destroying certain personalities. We have a great British comedian, I'm trying to think of his name, Hugh Grant, I think he is, that's right, who was so badly hounded by the media and so on. These people were breaking into his house, going through his office, and finally, thank goodness, he was one of these really strong men who actually said, no, I'm not having this. And he went into a court battle, and usually, because the newspapers are funded by people who have so much money they don't know what to do with it all, which is why they become newspaper owners in the first place. And he stood and he battled with them, and if anyone was betting on the outcome, they would have absolutely bet that the media would win the day, because don't they always, because they have so much power, and we the people are the ones who have given them the power. Let's make no mistake about that. But he, against all of the odds and determination, and he's a man I totally admire for what he did. He stood up to them and said no, and he won. And he got them not only to retract what they had said, but I don't know if he got some sort of payout or whatever. But anyway, he is a hero because he stood up to those people who are supposed to be, because that's what journalism used to be about. Journalism used to be about reporting the news impartially. Now, we know over the years, and we have allowed it because we don't always see it coming, do we? We have allowed the media to now, they pretty much control what we think, what we feel. We hear the news, but we only hear the one side, the side that the newscasters and the news company, whatever it is, NCB or whatever, I'm not just pointing them out, but we only hear the side that they want to promote. We only hear the side when they want to give us a skewed version of the news. I do not believe that there is any news at this moment in time in America, in England, I don't know, I can't speak for other countries. I do not believe that there is impartiality in the media, which means that we, the people, ordinary people, are listening to news that is only one-sided. We don't hear the whole story. But yet, even though we know this, we do know this because it happens all the time, and we call it out and so on when people are only being one-sided, let's say. We, even though we know it, we believe what we're told. We absolutely believe, and we get caught up in this furor of thinking in this one way, sort of a little bit like the mentality of when people used to do hangings and so on, and the crowd would get together, and there was this crowd mentality. And I feel that this crowd mentality is happening all over the world right now. We are not thinking necessarily for ourselves. We are actually believing what the news tells us, even though we know that the news is biased, and that there is, I don't actually believe there is any such thing anymore as an unbiased reporter. I'd love to meet one. I'm sure there are some out there, I'm not saying. But when you listen to the news, it is so skewed either one way or the other way. And as the public, we've only got this to go on. We've only got this to believe, and so we believe it. And we make our decisions based on these things that we're being told. There's a great book, which is called, the name of the book is called Bias, written by someone who used to work in one of the big new media companies. I can't remember if it was CBS or NBC or whatever it was, but this guy worked as a reporter in one of these companies, and he wrote this amazing book, and it's called Bias. And I wish I could remember the name of the guy, but I can't remember the name of the guy. Maybe Chris, you could look it up as I'm talking to you about it. The book is definitely called Bias. It was I probably read it about, I don't know, maybe 10 years ago or something. And this guy gives examples of how biased news people are, and how they only report on the stuff that they want to report on, and they deliberately ignore or even pretend it didn't happen, the stuff that's going on that they don't believe in. So they're actually skewing our vision and our version of what's going on here. And having thought about this long and hard, I decided that that she sent me this email, and I wrote her back, and the thing that sort of stands out to me the most in all of this is how, as a nation, America as a nation, and not just America, so many countries around the world are buying into this. It's as if hate and bias, without knowing what's really behind things, the hate and bias and this vicious feeling that so many people have. They get so angry, so worked up about what's happening in the world today, which we've seen recently when somebody tried to assassinate Trump, and unfortunately that poor individual who was caught the bullet that was meant for Trump, let's say that, driven by a young man who has obviously been influenced, and nobody's been there to say to him, hold on a minute, there are two sides to every story, hold on a minute, just because you believe this doesn't mean that we all believe it. What happened to freedom of speech? If you happen to say something that somebody doesn't like or disagrees with, then you're the enemy. You're not a person who has an opinion. You're the enemy of the person who has an opposite opinion. What happened to democracy? We have the vote. Every individual has the vote. So if Trump gets voted in and gets to be president, it's because the people, the majority of people, this is what they want. And since when do we, any of us, deny the majority vote, deny the majority opinion? Since when do we get angry because, somebody disagrees with our point of view? And so I just feel that there is so much hatred in this world, and so many. Nobody's giving anybody the benefit of the doubt. The politicians themselves do a really great job, don't they? They wind us up. They fill us with their own opinions, their own bias, which we tend to buy into. Last week, for a whole week or so, I told you the story of how many times I've seen Jesus, not just the face of Jesus. Somebody sent me an email with a guy I think he's a singer who looked up and saw the face of Christ. And I know that lots of people do from time to time see that. This is not something that happens infrequently around the world. It is something that it's not something that is infrequent to me. But I told you the stories, and I unexpectedly then last week had Christ participating in this show, which totally blew my mind. And I know from the emails I've gotten from so many of you, it totally blew your minds as well. And well, it would, wouldn't it? But because I've been seeing him so often over the last couple of weeks, I have to tell you that I have not seen him since last Thursday when I was when he blew me away by his presence here. I have not seen him since then until this morning. And here he is again. I do not see him as vividly as I saw him last week. One minute I see him, now I'm talking to you and I don't see him. Now I see him again. But it's not surprising to me that he is here, because since I was a little girl, my mother used to send us to the church, not the one across the street that was easy to get to. No, she used to send us to the one that was way up on the corner on a big main road. My sisters and I, the four of us, would have to trudge up to the church. But since I was 3 years old, I went to that church, and that church was my family. And that church was the Church of Jesus Christ. So our elders or our leaders in the church would tell us lots of different stories about Christ and so on. I was fascinated by the stories. I knew Christ well from being a very little girl, and I've always never ever doubted him, never doubted his presence. I have my own opinions on, who he is and what he does, and I do believe that he is my savior. I don't want to get all religious and all that stuff on you, all of you, because this is not a preachy show. We don't preach. And I also believe that, as Christ has taught me, the majority of the world has never even heard of Christ. So, all of those of you out there who think if you don't believe in Christ, you're going to end up in hell when you die, I don't think so, because I'm using my common sense here. I'm using my common sense when I talk about political things and media things. I'm using my common sense here. So I'm not just making judgments based on what I'm being told and what I'm reading. I am using the judgment that I have that is within me, and I'm following my heart. I'm not buying into the media stuff. I'm not buying into the hate and the angst and the fear and the terror that people are trying to rev up so that we get so afraid of living our lives that we just freeze up. And I know that some of you, as my friend wrote in her email, I'm terrified of what's going to happen if Trump becomes president. Why? He is a patriot. We all know that. No doubt about that. Is he the nicest person in the world? Are you kidding me? Of course not. You know, has he been? Let me see. Had some weird ideas about women? Yeah, I know that for sure. I know a friend of mine who used to know him, and you know, he can be a bit of a pig in his views on women, certainly, or used to be anyway. I think he's mellowed quite a bit. That doesn't make me like him particularly, but would I be terrified if he became president? Absolutely not. The same as the other side. You know, there's good and there's bad in everything, but politicians come and go, presidents come and go. We here, we're judging, but there seems to be so much hatred, and there seems to be, you know, I've even heard people say, pity the bullet didn't get him in the head. Since when did we become so hateful within us as human beings? Since when did we allow hate to override every other feeling that we have? Since when do we, as a people, allow terror to freeze us to the point where we're so afraid? I mean, you know, with COVID, so many people were absolutely terrified. But didn't you learn something during COVID, those of you who were so terrified? Because nobody talks about it anymore. It's like everything else, you know, it has its moments, it has its day, and then we get on with our lives. And it's the same with, you know, the media. It's the same with politicians. It's we have to be responsible for ourselves. And I think that Christ wants to join in on this conversation, because my theme today was about hate. And I hate, if that makes any sense to any of you. I hate when people hate. It makes me sad. It makes me very, very sad. I've always found Christ, you've heard me say, he is my Savior. And I am so grateful that he's made his presence here known to me this morning. I think he's coming, and I think he's coming to lots of people and making himself known more and more to remind us, as Gregor would say, our world needs gentleness. You betcha. Our world needs kindness. Where is the kindness when we can, as a group, as a nation, as a country, as a world, focusing on it? What did this man ever do to create so much hatred towards him? There's no excuse for it. There's no reason for it. And I'm not supporting Trump. Please don't think that, you know, my vote is for Trump. My vote is for gentleness. My vote is for kindness. My vote is forgiveness, for forgiveness. My vote is for what Christ taught me. My vote is for goodness, giving the benefit of the doubt. And if you don't agree with someone, or you don't like someone, it's okay to say it, but really, come on. We don't need this in our world. We don't need this in our lives. This hatred that is so prevalent these days in our world, this discontent, this fear that we're all feeling. Well, not all, but because not me, because I feel that since when did we start to forget that God has a plan? Since when did we start to listen to the media and the meanness and the nastiness? Since when did we start to listen to the politicians who claim that they're doing the best for us when in fact they have their own agendas? Since when did we start listening to them above and beyond listening to God, above and beyond listening to Christ? God has a plan for us. Whether Trump gets in, whether the other guy gets in, doesn't matter. God has the plan. Since when, as a people, Since when did we stop listening to God? Since when did we stop listening to Christ and those who are like Christ, who promote love, kindness, gentleness, benefit of the doubt? Since when did we stop listening to them? And I am so sad for this country of ours. I'm so sad for this nation. I'm so sad for this world of ours. I'm so sad. And I think that this is why I see Jesus in the last couple of weeks a lot more than I've seen him ever before, I think. To remind me that God has a plan and that we need to trust in God, to trust in our Lord Jesus Christ, to trust in the fact that we are protected. I've been talking to my grandson this week about protection, about people keeping people safe, because, you know, again, so much in the world, he listens to all of this thing, and when you know, we see on TV the, you know, the potential, who knows, next president of our country is assassinated. Remember when Kennedy was assassinated and the whole world stopped and took a breath. The whole world stopped and took a breath. When the Twin Towers went down, the whole world stopped and took a breath. We were reminded of our vulnerability as human beings, and we also were reminded, so many of us, to thank God. But for the grace of God go I, how many of us said. We don't trust anymore. We've stopped listening to common sense. We've stopped listening to ourselves. Since when is there so much hatred in our hearts? Since when did we stop listening to God? And I'm looking at Christ as I'm saying this to you. Since when did we stop listening to those like Christ who taught us gentleness, kindness, trust in God, trust in ourselves to be the best that we can be? Since when did we stop listening? And Christ is here to remind us of that. He's nodding at me as I'm saying this to you. Since when did we stop being kind, human, loving, gentle, he says? Since when did we stop being that? We can be that with our children, we can be that with our grandchildren, we can be gentle, we can be loving, but then if they hear us then talking to our friends and we're spewing vitriol about this person or that person, or we're angry about something that's going on, children don't learn from what we say, they learn from what we do. And I've been trying to teach Reese this week, you know, that his silly grandpa, this is my dad, silly grandpa helps to keep us safe. Cradle keeps us safe, God keeps us safe. Of course, Jesus keeps us safe. I told him the stories, and he and his mum, I told them the stories, and when I got off the plane, we talked about it long and hard, and I tried to say to Reese, we are protected. Yes, bad things happen in the world, of course they do. Bad things have been happening in this world since the world began. We've had droughts, we've had vicious viruses, we've had all sorts of things, but we survive it, and we become stronger for it. We become stronger for those hardships that we have to go through. We become stronger for the gift of tears that we're given so often. We become stronger for it. Since when did we stop listening to those who have taught us better? Since when did we lose faith in God? If Trump becomes president, well, it's because that's the plan. Who knows, it might be a good plan, it might not work out for many of us, or it might work out for some of us, who knows? We are a democracy. And because we're a democracy, we should honour and respect the views of those who differ from us in their belief systems, whether it's religion, whether it's politics, whether it's... I don't listen to the news anymore. I'm sick to death of listening to the news because it's so biased and so one way. It's sad. It's very sad. So my message, I guess, talking about all of this is, if you can just hold on to the fact that, as Christ said last week, and this is saying to us, even as I'm talking to you now, he's reaching out his arms. We hold you in our hands. And this gets me every time. Even if you don't believe in us, even if you don't believe in me, he says, I believe in you. And that's what we need to hold on to. Okay, Chris. How are you doing there?
Very good. Teary-eyed, like I think a bunch of us are.
Okay, all right.
Are you looking for comments or questions?
Comments are good for now.
All right. I'm going to circle back up. Judith says, last week, as soon as you look sideways at, quote, something, your whole demeanor and appearance changed. You had a glow and a vibe that could be felt through the screen. I knew something big happened.
You can say that again, Judith. Definitely. It was big. I was surprised this morning, but not so much. You know, I might get disappointed if he doesn't come every time now. What are we going to do about that? Okay.
Barb says, good morning, all. Happy to be with you again. Last week, your show was amazing. It left me speechless and kept me saying, wow.
You have no idea. It kept me speechless and kept me saying, wow. I had to sit down. I had so many friends call me to say, are you okay? Is everything all right? You're feeling okay? But yes, it was amazing.
Let's see. Melissa says, just reading your book for the first time and I love it.
Oh, right. I wonder which book that is. Do you think she means The Eagle and the Rose? What do you think? I'm glad you're loving it. Whichever book it is, I'm glad you're loving it. Okay.
All right. Then we have Mark, I think it was. He says, I have to tell you that the few of us who were with you last Thursday, when you shared the story of how our Lord appeared for your client and then came to our session again, I saw in your face the love and the well of tears in your eyes that God was present with us. It was truly amazing. I could see in your eyes that you saw himself. My heart pounded greatly.
Me too. My heart was pounding greatly too. Thank you for that.
Trisha saying hello from Epworth, your old hometown.
Oh, hello.
Then we have Simon, who says there are only a few priorities in life. Be thankful for your existence, love yourself, and love others like you would like to be loved. You taught me well, Rosemary, when I was under your guidance.
Oh, Simon. Hi, Simon. Well, thank you for that. I like to think I'm a good teacher, but hey, you know, I don't please everybody, of course.
Lori says the timing of that appearance through you is no mistake. Jesus is always near, and you helped remind us.
Well, thank you for that.
I did post the name of that book, Bias, that you had asked about. And I'm scrolling back up to see. You
The name
wanted to
of
know
the
the name.
author?
Bernard Goldberg.
Yes, Bernard Goldberg. Yes. I could not remember it, but he is a journalist. He actually has written from time, I don't know if he still does, but he has written for the New York Times. And the actual story of the book, you'll think it's a political book, but trust me, it is not a political book. It's about, it so tells us in detail. And Bernard, I've forgotten his last name, he worked as a journalist for the New York Times. He had quite a few articles printed, so he's very well respected in journalism. And he also worked for, and I don't remember whether it was, as I say, NBC,
CBS.
CBS. So he worked for CBS, and he wrote an article which apparently the heads of CBS did not like and did not approve of. He wrote an article in the New York Times, and so apparently they couldn't fire him for some reason at the CBS, although they would have. But they stopped sending him on assignments. They punished him greatly for his personal views that he actually dared to write an article about in the New York Times. Bias, 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 and you, I think it would do all of us if you could stand to it. I promise you, it's not political. He doesn't talk about the politics. He talks about what's going on behind the scenes in the news, in the media, and he gives unbelievable examples of how this bias worked. And I just found it fascinating. Not at all surprising, I have to tell you, but when you're faced with facts and facts and figures of how the bias works and why it works, and what the agenda of a news, the news in England, we had the BBC. We didn't have really anything much other than the BBC. We do now, of course, but in my days, I've told you I'm not such an old lady. In my days, the BBC was it, and you could trust it. You could trust that there was no bias there, and journalists were very proud of the fact that they didn't have a bias, and that they could report on both sides of an issue. Now, you get whole companies, and CBS is definitely one of them. If that's the CBS that he's talking about in his book, boy oh boy, when you read it, you can see how biased these people are and how they send their reporters out only for the things that they want to send them out for, not for what's happening in the city or whatever, but just where they want to go and where they want to direct our minds. And they feed us information without giving us both sides of a story. And if you don't know both sides of a story, you know nothing. Just be clear about that. If you don't know both sides of the story, you don't know anything. And if you're making judgments only hearing one side of a story, well, you're a fool. You might think you know everything, and in fact, and I'm only speaking my opinion here, you know how straightforward I can be, guys. So, but if you don't know both sides, you know nothing. And it behoves us all to ask, okay, I'm hearing this, but what is the other side of this? And I've always taught my students, I've always taught my daughter and now my grandson, there are always two sides to every issue. There are always two sides to every story. And, when I hear a story which sounds horrific to me, and, it's an awful story, I always go to the, oh, yes, but what is it that caused it, or what's the other side of this? It's in my nature to do that because I'm a curious person. And it might seem that what you hear is real, but don't judge it until you've heard all sides of a story, then you can make your decision as to what it is that you're going to believe or otherwise. That doesn't apply just to stories, that applies to people. I mean, if we can just mention Donald Trump again, believe me, I don't like the man. Would I vote for him? Well, that's a whole other issue, because I have to look at the good that he might do for the nation or not. The same as I would with any other politician in any other party. But I know that he has a really good side to him, as we all do. I know that he has a not such a good side to him, excuse me, but as we all do. But are we looking for a person, looking at a person who's a bad person? Are we looking for a person who's a patriot? Definitely is a patriot, there's no doubt about it. But be careful how you judge. You know that old saying, don't judge not lest you yourself be judged. And if I said to every single one of you, put your hand up if you've done something awful, I got 2 hands up and I need more besides, because I know that I've done things in my past, and maybe even in my recent past, that haven't been so great. I'm not a perfect person, neither are any of us, and we need to stop criticizing other people for their imperfections before we take a look at our own. Chris.
Rosemary, I'm reminded of 3 different things that you've taught us in the past.
Okay.
Do you remember your exercise where you had people draw on one side their positive traits, the other side their negative traits, and then you talked about the one trait that we all have in common? That's one thing I'm thinking about.
Which was the trait we all have in common?
Spite.
We're all capable of spite. We are. It's so true. But I do remember that because Reese and I are doing that same exercise as we speak. We did his, and now it's my turn to do mine. So yes, I like people to make a list of the positives and the negatives, draw a line down the middle, and you got to think of at least 10 of each if you can. And the list needs to be fairly balanced, and also it's true, and I was talking to Reese about this just 2 days ago actually, you can have a positive trait, you can have a positive character trait, but it can also be a negative trait as character trait as well. So sometimes you can put, for instance, on the positive, just off the top of my head, you can put assertive. Well, assertive can be good and it can be not so good, negative or positive. So it's a really great exercise. What are the other 2 exercises, Chris, that you're remembering?
I remember the story you told us about Jim and Samantha being in the car with you, and something happened that made, I think, might have been another driver on the road. Do you remember this story?
So that story was, we were driving back from a skiing expedition. The weather was dreadful, the roads were awful, and it was hard to keep, if you didn't have to drive on the road, don't drive on the road. And all of a sudden we see this guy, the roads are so bad, the conditions of the roads are so bad, and it wasn't actually Samantha in the car, it was a group of friends in the car.
Okay.
And we're driving carefully, and all of a sudden this guy comes whizzing past us in a hurry, seemingly driving so crazily and so dangerously. And, everyone in the car was saying, oh my God, he's crazy. Look at him. Look at what he's, look at what he's doing. Judging that he was a dangerous driver, which definitely was driving dangerous, no doubt about it. And they were all they were revving themselves up and really being mean about this guy, actually, and saying really nasty things, and without even knowing him. He's just a driver in a car. But yes, I could understand why people would get riled up about that, because it was a dangerous thing. However, at some point they're all going on, and it got to be pretty bad. And I put my hand up and I said, "Can I just say something to all of you?" And they looked at me and I said, "What you don't realize is that that man had a phone call that his wife has been taken into hospital. She's severely ill and she's had to leave 4 children at home on their own because there are no babysitters. And this guy is so worried about his wife, he wants to get to the hospital, but he's torn because he needs to get to his children as well. And this is why he's driving so dangerously. This is why he's driving in this panicked way." And they all look at me and they stare open mouthed at me, because now suddenly there's possibly a really good reason why this guy is panicking on the road. Not that he's not a dangerous driver, but that there's a really good reason why he's doing this, why he's driving so dangerously. And at some point, one of the women in the car sort of says in an awed voice, "Oh my goodness, Rosemary, is that true?" And I say, "No, but it could be." Give the benefit of the doubt before you start to judge people harshly. Give them the benefit of the doubt. Ask why. What's driving this person to do this or to say that? Try if you can, in ordinary, regular circumstances. I mean, sometimes, a mass murderer is a mass murderer. There's no reason for it other than that she's a dark soul. I mean, sometimes there are reasons, but try if you can to give the benefit of the doubt. What's the third story, Chris?
The parable of the 5 blind Indian men who are presented with an elephant, and they have to describe what they see.
Yes. Well, you should all try it out. Not with an elephant necessarily, but yes. We don't know what we're seeing. We don't always know what we're seeing, and we don't always understand our feelings. Again, it's a question of question. Don't just judge because somebody says that's a bad man or that's a bad woman. Don't just judge because somebody says it that it's true. Give the benefit of the doubt and figure it out for yourself. And please, everybody, please, for me, stop believing what the news tells you to believe. You've got to look at it from all points of view. A friend of mine watches Australia Sky News, and she tells me that they've got no axe to grind politically in America, which is true, and they're great. If you've ever watched Australia Sky News, they are great because they really do tell it as it is, and they often have film and backup. They have facts and figures to back up what it is they're saying, which I like. Maybe they are those wonderful reporters who we always believed reporters to be, but we know now are not. Perhaps they are unbiased and just telling it as it is. Chris.
All right, so back to comments. Rhonda says, Rosemary, you put my friend that was diagnosed with cancer a year ago into the healing book. I have wonderful news. She is cancer free. Thank you so much for the prayers.
Oh, that is wonderful news. Thank you for letting us know that. Okay, Chris, we do whatever you like. We've got questions. We've got whatever it is. Go for it.
All right. Leslie says, I so appreciate you volunteering your time for us on Thursdays. I so look forward to it.
Thank you, Leslie, and I look forward to it too. So I'm glad. I'm hoping that I'm inspiring you here, all of you, in some way or another.
All right, I'm going to go back up to one of the people that was on really early, 2 minutes after you started the show.
Oh gosh.
And this is our person from Sri Lanka.
Okay.
So I'm going to butcher the names, and I apologize ahead of time. So I believe the name is Himalaj, Himalij. He or she says, good evening. I'm Himalai from Sri Lanka. Could I pose a question to Rosemary and Gray Eagle? Could I receive a message from my late parents Camilla and Jean and spirit guides.
I'm sorry, is there a question there?
This person just wants a message from any of them.
Okay, well, I have something, different things are happening here. I'm listening to Grey Eagle, as of course I always try to do, and oh boy, I also have a message from Christ who says to you for your question, we hold them. He says, we hold them in our hands. Even if they don't believe in us, we believe in them. This is for your family. So this is for your family in the spirit world. And from Grey Eagle, I'm told to tell you they are at peace, learning and growing. So there's the answer to your message. I hope that. How many times does Jesus give a message? I'm not negating Grey Eagle either, because we're all working together here. So go for it, Chris. Keep going.
Vicky says, help. I need help with a career change.
Okay.
No more substitute teaching.
Vicky, in this brief time that we have on the show, you all know that I hate to just, give advice like this, just off the
Cuff.
Thank you, off the cuff. I'm so flustered here, I have to tell you, with what's going on. Sorry, I'll try and focus. I'll try and concentrate. So, I can't say too much to you. Oh, I can say trust. That comes from the man on my left, and from the man on my right. They're both laughing. Trust. It'll be okay. We promise you it will be okay. Chris.
This one's from Mary. My 13-year-old wants to wear women's dresses, and he looks beautiful in them, but some of my own family and community doesn't accept it. Does Grey Eagle say it's okay for him to wear girls' dresses?
Well, there's much more going on here, isn't there? This is a lot. We have to look at not just the fact that he wants to wear dresses. We have to look at the reasons why he wants to wear dresses, and without properly talking to you both and without discussing this, it's hard for me to say yes or no that this is okay or not okay. You know that by allowing him to wear girls' dresses, he is going to be ridiculed. He's going to be bullied somewhat. He's going to be pointed out as being different, but not necessarily in a good way. I encourage people to be individuals. I encourage people to be who they want to be inside. But I do think there's more to this issue that you need to discuss. And I think that, at 13, lots of hormones raging all over the place here. And so, maybe it's a phase he's going through, or maybe it's something that he will continue with. But I think you do need to actually talk to him and explain to him that his choices are his choices, but you need to prepare him for the consequence of those choices. And at 13 years old, he's hormonal. You need to be very careful here in trying to explain to him how we shouldn't care what other people think. And as we get to adulthood, we really shouldn't care what people think. We should be who we are. But He's 13, he's hormonal, lots of things going on with him, and it makes me nervous that he might be ridiculed, bullied, um, pointed out, whatever. As long as he understands that and you feel that he's strong enough to deal with it, and you need to monitor him very carefully through this process. There's a lot more to say about it. I wish I could have more time with you, but just be cautious. I don't think there's anything wrong in it, but I'm not sure that it's the right thing without proper counsel, proper counseling from you and from his close family. And we shouldn't worry about what people think, but he's 13 years old and he's hormonal, and he will worry and he will be affected by the way that he's treated if he does this. So you need to prepare him for that and be supportive of him at the same time, as much as you can be. Chris.
Alessandro says, I'd like to stop my fearing life. I knew you on television when you came to Italy on the Maurizio Costanzo show. Please, if possible, help me. And thanks a lot.
I don't know that if you know about our bottom brick exercise, but as soon as you said that, I'm thinking obviously something in your life, whether it's past or present, something has traumatized you. You don't become a fearful person without good reason. And so you might want to, if you want to know more about our bottom brick exercise, just email and Chris will give you all the details of that. So I think we can help you. It depends how much you would like us to help you, and that would be your choice. Chris.
All right. So Pauline has written, she was referred by D, wants to know, do you still do the healing group, and how do you get into the book? My sister, a light worker, had a stroke before COVID, is being advised to be put in hospice. It's hard to read what this person is writing, but basically they want to know, do you still do the healing group, and how does one get onto the healing list?
Oh, you just email Chris and you ask. Yes, we still have groups of people who help us. If anybody out there wants to join our group, so to speak, we do the healing minute. If you join with us doing the healing minute, you know, 11 o'clock wherever you are in the world, 11 o'clock a.m. your time, wherever you are in the world, just take a moment, send out healing prayers, join with us, join with the RA group if you like, join with Rosemary and just say and it takes 10 seconds, maybe even less, to send healing to a particular person or to out into the world, to send healing energy out into the world. But that's what our 11 a.m. healing minute is all about. So you could do that. I'm not quite sure what book you're talking about. So if you could be more specific about the book, we could tell you possibly where you might find it.
All right, then there's Michael. My dad passed away and I did not get to speak with him. I would love a message from him. His name is Walter.
Well, as you know, I don't usually do this off the cuff stuff, but we're going to do it today because, Michael, you're right. So, okay, so I'm talking to Gregel, and I'm also, I can't believe I'm saying this is amazing. I'm also looking at Christ, and I'm asking, how can we help you? He is safe. I'm told to tell you that he is safe. Also, Gregel is talking to me about your life and how a little bit in turmoil your life is right now, and you've got some decisions to make coming up. He tells me trust in yourself, tells me to tell you to trust in yourself, your own beliefs. Even if you're nervous about making the wrong decision, it won't be the wrong decision. Remember what I said earlier. when did we stop listening to God? When did we lose our faith in God? When, as human beings, when in this world did we stop putting other people, politicians, the media, that, you know, that big voice that's out there that we all listen to? Well, the bigger voice, the greater voice, is the voice of God. Since when did we stop listening and believing and having faith in the voice of God? And I'm to remind you, Michael, that, and again, I'm reminded by Christ as he says, we hold you in our hands. You may not believe in us, but we believe in you. Wow, I think I'm going to use that as a mantra in future. Go ahead, Chris.
This is from Jen. I have just lost a very good dear friend. It was such a shock, and I am so, so sad. Can you and Grey Eagle tell me anything, please? I just feel totally devastated.
I'm so very sad for you that this is how you're feeling, Jen. Again, we only have a few minutes of time, but if I can just say this to you, we all of us think as death as the end, as opposed to death as the beginning. Yes, it's the end of one life. Yes, it's the end of our connection with them physically, but it is not the end of our connection with them spiritually or emotionally. I'm sure this person is close to you, close by you, even though you're feeling sad and probably can't feel anything right now except the numbness and the shock. I'm fully aware of how that numbness and shock feels. My father passed very suddenly, very quickly, and I was numb and in shock for a long time. But if you can, my darling, understand that death is not the end. That did not end this person's life. He or she have just moved forward into a new and a better life and a wonderful life. Hold on to that thought. Let it lift you. Let it lift you up. Let it give you the courage to lift your face to the sun. Let it give you the courage to understand that death is not the end. It is merely the beginning of something new. Chris.
This is from Mark. When you were visited by our Lord, did Grey Eagle have anything to say for he being Apache, not knowing Jesus, only until he crossed over into the spirit world? I kept thinking about how our loved ones come to be with us when you are on and we are present. Do you have any insight?
Um, well, I think that Jesus certainly knows Grey Eagle, and Grey Eagle certainly knows Jesus. And here we are, the three of us at the moment, together, working together, talking about the importance of life, the faith that we seem to have lost, that we need to gain back, the love, the kindness, the gentleness. We're all in accordance, we're all in agreement with this. There have been many, many, many great teachers of various nationalities and various different beliefs since the world began. We're not on opposing sides, we're a team. You know, we each have a job to do. I believe that Christ is and was in his lifetime on this earth one of the greatest healers of our, if not the greatest healer of our time since the world began. I also believe that Grey Eagle, I know that Grey Eagle is a phenomenal teacher, a shaman, and so they were brought up in different lives in different cultures, but they're, as Jesus would say, their heart and soul are connected. Chris.
Let's see. Well, you're after time, Rosemary. Let's see. Did anybody else add anything? Gary says, one plane, one people.
Oh,
Judith is saying, thank you more than I can express. Pauline saying, thank you for reminding us to connect within to infinite supreme being, the one with no and many names.
I like it.
Paul's asking, he's from Pennsylvania, and he wants to know, are there any messages from his mom?
Oh, Paul, we're at time. We're right out of time. And again, I hate to do this. You know, I won't just, I can say yes to you, I can say whatever, but I'm sure she's fine. But all of you out there who are trying to connect with your loved ones, there is a way to do it, and you can seek out a good medium. Please be careful. There are not so many of us out there that are so as good as the rest of us would like us to be. Or you can book a consultation with me anytime. So, you know, if you want to know more about that, please email Rosemary at rosemaryaltea.com, and we'll give you the answers that we seek. And even if I didn't give you a message today, don't stop trying. You can ask as many times as you like. I can say no as many times as I like, especially if we're over time right now. But please don't, you know, you can give up on me. That's fine. You can give up on me. Don't give up on your mother, please. Don't give up on those in the spirit world who love you. Please don't give up on them. That's it for today. I'd like to say thank you to Grey Eagle, and I can't believe I'm saying this. Thank you to my Savior, Jesus Christ. Thank you for the input and the knowledge that you've given. Thank you for the inspiration. Please remember, everybody, please remember, give the benefit of the doubt. Don't make decisions based on what you've been told here or here. Base decisions on the entire story, the entire facts. So many people close their minds to the good in people. You've told he's a bad person or she's a bad person. You close your mind to the possibility that there could be good things about that person. Don't close your mind off to the possibility that the people that you don't agree with might have something valuable to tell you, might have something valuable that you can learn from. Give the benefit of the doubt. That's it for this morning. Thank you all for watching. Thank you all for joining in. I'd like to say again, thank you to my guys. Thank you to Chris. Thanks to all of you who are watching. Please, everybody, have a very, very blessed rest of the day. And